On June 4, 1974, a Major League Baseball team sold beer for 10 cents a cup, and by the ninth inning, players were swinging bats at their own fans. It is the only game in modern history undone by its own promotion. Not a pitch. Not a scandal. Beer. 10 cents a cup, and almost no limit on how much a man could buy. What happened that night got written into every stadium rulebook in America, a scene so out of control that the umpire, a decorated combat veteran, said it scared him more than the war did. This is the story of 10-cent beer night. The Cleveland Indians were not a good team. In the summer of 1974 they were mediocre, forgettable, and starving for a crowd. They played in Cleveland Municipal Stadium, a hulking concrete bowl on the shore of Lake Erie, built for 80,000 people, that locals had nicknamed the Mistake by the Lake. On a normal night, 8,000 fans rattled around inside it, their voices swallowed by acres of empty seats. The team needed bodies in the building, and it needed them badly. So someone in the front office did the math. Dropped the price of a beer from 65 cents to a dime. 10 ounces a cup. 6 cups per trip to the counter, but make as many trips as your legs could carry you. 10 cents a cup, all night long. Put it on the calendar. Call it 10-cent beer night. And see who shows up. They should have asked who was coming to town first. 6 days earlier, in Arlington, Texas, these same two teams had turned a baseball game into a brawl. It began with a hard slide and a hit batter, and it ended with both dugouts emptying onto the field, fists flying in the Texas heat. As the Cleveland players walked off, Rangers fans pelted them with beer, food, and garbage from the stands. The Indians went home humiliated. And back in Cleveland, the team's radio broadcasters went on the air and reminded the city, night after night, exactly what Texas had done to their boys. By the time the Rangers rolled into Cleveland the following week, the city wanted revenge. And the city was about to be handed all the cheap beer it could pour down its throat. The gates opened on June 4th. And instead of 8,000 people, more than 25,000 poured through the turnstiles, the biggest crowd Cleveland had drawn in ages. Many were already drunk before they found their seats. A lot of them had not come for baseball at all. They had come for the beer, and some of them had come for a fight. That was the turn nobody in the front office saw coming. They had wanted a crowd. What they got was a mob with a 10-cent fuse. It went wrong before the first pitch really settled in. By the second inning, a heavy-set woman climbed into the on-deck circle, bared her chest at the crowd, and tried to kiss the home plate umpire. A naked man sprinted across the outfield and slid into second base. A father and his son hopped the wall, ran into the grass, and mooned the bleachers together. Firecrackers went off in the stands like gunshots. And every half inning, the beer lines got longer, the cups got emptier, and the crowd got louder and meaner. The beer flowed faster than the vendors could pour it. When the lines backed up, fans shoved past the counters and helped themselves. Others lit firecrackers and lobbed them into the Texas bullpen until the relief pitchers grabbed their gloves and fled for the dugout. Smoke drifted over whole sections of the stands. By the middle innings, the grounds crew had simply given up chasing the streakers who kept spilling onto the grass. The Rangers were the enemy, and the fans made sure they knew it. Cups, rocks, hot dogs, and batteries came flying out of the seats. Texas outfielders played the whole night ducking debris. In the visitors' dugout stood Billy Martin, the Rangers manager, a man who had never in his life backed down from a fight. He watched his players dodge bottles, and he answered the jeering crowd by tipping his cap and blowing them kisses. It only made them angrier. And here is the strangest part. On the field, the game was good. Cleveland fell behind early, then clawed its way back inch by inch. By the bottom of the ninth inning, the Indians had tied the game at 5, put the winning run in scoring position, and the stadium, what was left of a functioning stadium, smelled a walk-off. They never got to finish it. With 2 outs in the ninth, a young fan leaped over the wall and went straight for Rangers right fielder Jeff Burroughs, the reigning American League Most Valuable Player. The kid tried to snatch the cap right off his head. Burroughs spun, lost his footing, and went down. And from the far dugout, all Billy Martin could see was one of his players on the ground, surrounded, alone. Martin grabbed a bat. "Let's go get 'em, boys," he shouted, and led the entire Texas Rangers roster, bats in their hands, sprinting into the outfield to rescue their teammate. That was the spark that lit everything. Hundreds of fans flooded over the walls and onto the field. What had been chaos all night became a full riot. And then something almost unbelievable happened. The Cleveland Indians came pouring out of their own dugout, not to fight Texas, but to defend them. Enemies became allies in the span of a single minute. Players from both teams stood back to back in the outfield, swinging bats to carve a path through the mob toward the safety of the tunnel. Fans tore chairs loose from the concrete and swung them. Knives came out. Bodies dropped in the dirt. Bases were stolen, the actual bases, ripped up out of the ground and carried off into the night. In the middle of all of it stood the umpire, Nestor Chilak. He was a decorated World War II veteran, a man who had fought in the Battle of the Bulge, been wounded, and come home with a Purple Heart and a Silver Star. On that field in Cleveland, a thrown rock opened up his hand and a metal folding chair caught him in the head, blood running down through his fingers. He had survived a war. He said this was worse. He called the game forfeited. The Texas Rangers were awarded a 9-0 victory, not because they had earned it on the field, but because the field was no longer a place a human being could safely stand. The next morning, the reckoning came in numbers. 9 fans arrested. Dozens injured, some seriously. The stadium left in ruins, seats torn from their bolts, the field chewed up, glass and garbage everywhere the eye landed. And Nestor Chilak did not soften a word of it. He called the crowd uncontrollable beasts, and said that even in the war he had never been so afraid, that only animals, given the chance, would do what those people had done. American League President Lee MacPhail, who ran the entire league, could only shake his head. There was no question, he said, that beer had played a major part in the disaster. The forfeit stood. Cleveland was left to sweep up the wreckage of its own idea. And yet, almost impossibly, the team held another dime beer promotion later that very same season. This time, they capped it, 2 beers per person, security lining the walls, order enforced from the first pitch. Nobody rioted. The lesson had finally been learned, the hardest way there is. Here is why one ruined baseball game still matters more than 50 years later. 10-cent beer night became the line in the sand for an entire industry. Before that night, A ballpark was a place where you could drink as much as your arms could carry, and nobody thought very hard about what a stadium packed with alcohol and anger might turn into. After that night, everybody did. The rules you take for granted today, the 2-beer limit at the counter, the cutoff after the 7th inning, the wall of security between the stands and the grass, the ID checks, the plastic cups instead of glass bottles, all of it traces back through decades of policy to nights exactly like this one. The business learned, in a single evening, that it was selling far more than a game. It was managing a crowd. And a crowd, handed enough cheap beer and a good reason to be angry, will quietly stop being an audience and become a mob. 5 years later, in Chicago, Disco Demolition Night would end the same way: another promotion, another field storm, another forfeit, another crowd that slipped its leash. The template had been written in Cleveland. Give a restless crowd a spark and a discount, and the game becomes the smallest thing happening inside the building. The players never forgot it. Billy Martin called it the closest he ever came to seeing men killed at a ballpark. Jeff Burroughs played another 15 years in the big leagues and carried with him the memory of a stranger clawing at his head while thousands of people cheered the stranger on. To the men who lived it, it was the night sworn enemies stood shoulder to shoulder just to get off the field alive. It was supposed to be a small thing, a cheap beer, a bad team, a front office desperate for a crowd on a slow Tuesday. Instead, it became the most infamous promotion in the history of American sport, a cautionary tale printed, in one form or another, into every stadium operations manual written since. So here is the question worth sitting with. The team got exactly what it asked for that night: a packed house, a roaring crowd, an old stadium alive with an energy it had not felt in years. They simply could not control what they had filled it with. How thin is the line, really, between a sellout crowd and a mob, and how much of what keeps us all in our seats is nothing more than the price of the next drink? Follow for more.